Welcome back. So if you've been following the videos so far about Myers-Briggs type indicator, you would hopefully have got your 4-letter code and know which of the 16 types that you are. So I know I've been saying in all my videos up till now that I'll be explaining the cognitive functions and how they work and how your 4 letters are the code to know which ones you use in which order. But I first thought it might be helpful to kind of introduce you to the 16 types in a way that you can, well, know a little bit about yourself, but also for me, this is a shortcut to knowing basic sort of strength or outlook of each type. And I do this by looking at which family they belong to. So this is introducing you to the whole family of MBTI types, but you can see that within the 16 types, there's 4 groups of 4. And so when you've basically got the answer to these 4 questions, and after watching the videos, I hope you've got enough information that if you talk to people or ask them some questions, you can hopefully narrow it down to at least a few types which you think they might be. And then when you refer to this particular image, you'll see what they have in common. So for me, the type that are in my sort of close family, so we've got the extended family of all the types, and then we have 4 types which I feel a little bit like our cousins. We have some similar functions going on, and often when you're mixing with your cousin types, you'll feel an easy compatibility, and that's because each of these 4 small family groups have 2 similar dichotomy going on. So if you look close, you can work it out, but let's go through them. So the first group. Now, I've heard this group being called the Knights. If you were referring to, let's say, the DISC model, they might be called the conscientious ones. So what makes them conscientious? What makes them Knights? If you look at these 4 types, the thing they have in common is that they all have S and they all have J. Okay, so you know what S is if you've been following the videos. So S are the practical, grounded, learning through the senses, data-driven, people who have patience and respect for mastering the physical world. And then the J. So J means that they use their deciding function. So they tend to be decisive and reliable and punctual and do things methodically and keep order. Wow, so we have a very practical type who's very reliable and orderly and methodical. This is why they're called Knights, because they are people who keep the boat afloat. These are people who protect the order of things, people who can be relied on to be there consistently, keeping a high standard of organization, a high standard of safety, a high standard of anything that they do, really. 2 of them are T and 2 of them are F. 2 of them are extroverted, 2 of them are introverted. Now, if they have the F in their 4 letters, that will translate as using all that organization and stability and routine, consistency, punctuality, details. They'll use it in service of people because they're F types, they love people. So what I've seen with the ESFJ and the ISFJ, they are the best hosts. Their houses are warm and welcoming and organized. Their fridge is always full. They find the nicest gifts. Of course, the extrovert type are much more of a showy host and can handle big groups. The ISFJ are the lovely friends who invite you to a one-on-one meal, and they'll make what you love, and they'll often send you off with a personalized gift. That's my experience of them. And then you've got the ESTJ. So again, you can actually work this out yourself. It's really fun, like a puzzle. Yeah, so ESTJ, they've got the J, so we know that they're organized and disciplined. They've got the S, so they're practical. So what is the T? So that means they use all of that organizational ability and detail in the sense world, practical. T, they use it for tasks. Yeah, they're driven by thinking, which means they're going to be focused on getting things done. And then because they're extroverted, they'll have that verbal confidence and kind of be out there. So that type is known as the supervisor, extremely hardworking. And then you've got the ISTJ. Again, these are such brief little stereotypes. Once you know the functions of each, will give you a deep appreciation for the gifts of all of them. But then the ISTJ are sort of the introverted version of the ESTJ. So they have that discipline, that detail, able to keep a routine. People who are really patient with details and data and being accountants. Often they'll call someone like the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon. So a bit OCD. Now, I know enough ISTJs to know the stereotype doesn't really fit. But the ones that I do know, extremely conscientious, extremely reliable, very careful with their reputation, like they have high moral standards. They're quite traditional. And once you know their cognitive functions, you'll kind of understand why. The introverted sensing tends to be a traditional function. They're not likely to be blue-haired radicals. They're more likely to be stable citizens with a 9-to-5 job or not rocking the boat, but the ones that are keeping the boat afloat. So that's a little bit of an introduction to the SJ family, the Knight family. So again, the shortcut is S, practical sense world, and the J, getting things done on time in a disciplined way. And then you can adjust for the F or the T or the E or the I. So let's have a look at the second small family within the big MBTI family. And these are often known as the healer group. They also, I think, in the DISC model, they would be called the steady or relator types. And this is because they all have in common the F. So they're all basically connected with the feeling way of making decisions. If it's introverted feeling, it's how do I feel about it? If it's extroverted, it's about connecting with others. But then they also have the N in common. So that means these are all intuitive types. Now, because I belong to this group as an ENFP, when I meet other of the NF types, it definitely feels like I'm meeting cousins. And there can be a lot of comfortable decisions about these sort of random abstract concepts. They all tend to be quite interested in MBTI because it's about patterns and it's about people. So they're N, intuitive, pattern recognition, F, feelings. So they're naturally drawn to understanding temperament styles quite a lot, whereas the SJ family, not so much. What I've seen in these types is a certain amount of warmth that comes from that feeling type, open-mindedness. That's why they're healers. People often feel very comfortable in the presence of that NF because the N makes them very open-minded. They're not judging or making a decision about you. They're kind of taking you and life as it comes. And then that feeling component. So they definitely would be seen to march to their own beat. And then, of course, the difference in these 4 types would be whether they're the E. So the ENFJ, because they're extroverted, but still J, they tend to use that organizational tendency, but with the F, working with people in an extroverted way. They're often known as teachers of teachers. Wonderful type, wonderful speakers, very inspiring, visionary leaders. So you can see why they're visionary leaders. They're great with people. They have a lot of discipline, so I can see they're really organized. They're extroverted, and so they're wonderful with people, and they're great with concepts. So they're very, like I said, very good at inspiring people. Then you've got the ENFP. So they're also extroverted, but because they're P and not J, remember the P means that they prefer their perceiving function. So they prefer to use their intuition in an extroverted way. So they're known as the ideas, creative types, and they're often known as the advocate because it means that whatever thing they're excited about, they're really good at selling it. So then you've got the INFJ. So again, if you look at the letters, the J means they're going to be more disciplined, the I more introverted. Again, this will be easier to understand once I do go into the cognitive functions, but they tend to use their introversion to see the future. They use introverted intuition, which is the ability to see the future of people. So they use it in working with people. Another type might use the ability to see the future to invent something, because they're more T-type. But an F-type will use their specialty to help other people. And then you've got the INFP. So as I mentioned, they've got the same functions as the ENFP. So they're creative, but often much less likely to push themselves in front of people with their talents. Johnny Depp is an INFP. If you listen to him speak, you can see that he's actually very introverted and hesitant when he speaks. It's not flowing out naturally, but when he takes on those characters, you can see what a talent he's got for understanding people's types. Anyway, I don't want to go way too deep into every type at this moment. I just want to kind of introduce the family so that you yourself, when you've got somebody's 4 letters, you can at least say, okay, I know what N means, I know what F means, so I get a bit of a flavor of the specialty or what this type might look like. Okay, so let's have a look at the 3rd family. Now, these are the SP types. They're known as explorers. In the DISC model, I think they would probably be the influencers. Now, again, look for what they have in common. It's the S and the P. So the S tells us that they are sense-oriented, practical in the world of the senses. But the P means that they are impromptu, flexible, like to do things in their own time, pressure-prompted, spontaneous, improvisers. So what's happening is they're using that improvisational talent with the senses. So this is the type that are able to be in the body and improvise in the moment. So if we look at these types, you'll see how they improvise in different ways. So the ISTP, now they're introverted thinkers, and then you've got the SP. So what that means, they're good with tools, and so task-oriented. So they're using the ability to improvise with the senses to build things and fix things. They're like the MacGyvers or the Han Solo fixing the spacecraft with the enemies running after them. So they're very, very practical, very good at fixing things and working things out. So they're focused on the physical world, using that improvisational talent. And then you've got the ISFP. So the difference, again, if you see the F, you'll know that they'll be, have a warmth to them that I've seen. They're known as often you'll see murals. They're very often artists. And the one that I know here in Mount Abu who lives here. He's a musician, an artist. He makes murals. He's so talented in that way, and he's very much loved by people and love of nature. And birds come and like sit on his hand. That's the classic ISFP. And then you've got the ESTP. That's a very different flavor. So again, SP, improvising with the senses, but they're thinkers, so it's much less focused on people. They're extroverted. Now, the ESTP are known for being great entrepreneurs because, again, in the moment, in the practical world, they can often build great businesses. So anything like motorbikes and surfing and fast driving is right up their alley. So sports and entrepreneurship match the ESTP very well. And then the last one, the ESFP. Lovely, lovely ESFP. So they're super friendly. They've got the F, they're spontaneous in the sense world. So they're often associated with partying, meeting people, traveling, adventure. They love sports, they love people. They're extremely warm, friendly types. They also have a philosophical bend, and they're quite introspective in another way. And that, again, that's to do with their complementary functions. So with all the types, everybody's multifaceted, but these are the classic stereotypes of the SP. So shortcut for sensing in the moment. So if you are an SP type, I think often SP types, when they get together, would love actually doing things together, whether it's dancing or sports or making something, or like a improvisation club, drama, where they can be in the body, in the moment, doing things with other people, sports or acting or whatever it is, compared with the NF types, which often get together and just love to talk about concepts. Rather than going out there and racing cars together. Yeah, very different vibe. Okay, so let's look at the fourth and final of the small families within the MBTI family. So these are those who have the NT in common. So they're also known as the wizard group, perhaps because of their mastery over the world in some way. In the DISC model, I think this type would be known as the dominant. So they're definitely assertive. They're all T types. So they tend to have that kind of dominant leadership. So they can either be leaders of companies or thought leaders, depending on their other letters. So if we do have a look at the other letters, so you've got the ENTP. So what can you to understand in a shortcut way about them? So again, they're very much into concepts, very much into thinking. So they're very strong-minded, strong, conceptual, futuristic type thinker. Extroverts, so they'll be communicating it. But P types, because they're P types, the main interest for them will be the concept. So they are actually known as the debaters because they will love to discuss ideas, but because they're dominant and they're thinkers, they're extremely good at convincing you that their ideas are right. Okay, and then you've got the INTP. So again, they will have the same functions as the ENTP, but around a different way. And so they'll be more interested in the logic of finding the truth. That's why they're like the wizard. And second will be kind of putting it out there. So they'll be more like the Socrates type rather than the in-your-face telling you that they're right types. And then you've got the ENTJ, which are the classic dominant types. So they're basically using that NT to think about the future, but they're thinking about the future of tasks. So they're moving the company forward. They've got that J, so they're disciplined, and the E, so they'll be extroverted. So they'll be very kind of out there and dominant in the way they move forward. As we go more into the cognitive functions, we'll see that it's actually extroverted thinking which is the most business-like function, and that's their strength. So each type will make a lot more sense when we get into that. But I'm just trying to give you a short introduction to the different families so you can get a flavor for them. And then you've got the INTJ, which are similar to the ENTJ, but because they're introverted, they'll be more focused on the invention, of the future, not necessarily getting the business to take it out there. So a kind of difference a little way of maybe illustrating the difference would be the difference between Nikola Tesla, the inventor, so he'd be the more introverted, futuristic thinker, and then compare him to Edison, who took an idea and made a lot of money out of it, probably took Tesla's ideas, but pushed it out into the world through a business and dominant in the physical world, making things happen. So some people say that Musk is an INTJ, but others say no, he's actually taken his ideas and put them out into the world. So he's actually more of an ENTJ. And a lot of the MBTI community really debate this and try and look at the cognitive functions and figure out which one they actually are. It's like an endless rabbit hole. But anyway, the purpose of this video is just to give you a shortcut to get a flavor of the different families so you can recognize others and recognize yourself, and a little bit understand why you will gel more easily with your cousins or siblings within the same type family. So thank you very much for listening, and stay tuned for the next video coming soon. Thanks a lot.